Welcome back to AI Diatribe. Today I get to sit down with Amy Osmond Cook. She's a founder, she's a CMO, and she's the author of the RevOps Advantage. So we're going to dig into the chaos of modern go-to-market, why authenticity matters more than ever, and how AI can actually make sales more human. Let's get into it. So for those that have never met Amy, let me introduce Amy Osmond Cook. She is the co-founder and CMO of Fullcast. So Fullcast, to give you a little bit of an intro there, it's a company that's positioned as kind of the industry's first end-to-end, they like to say revenue command center. I would agree. It really bridges the gap between CRMs and BI tools and also encompasses a lot of what those do with automation, centralized management, kind of everything from territories to lead routing, even to commissions, which is really super important for a lot of people in sales and revenue. And I had the distinct pleasure of taking part in a panel discussion for a panel that you were running at a recent GTM event that you emceed. And we talked about AI and its role not only in sales, but also kind of devolved into this big conversation about AI in the world as a whole. And we freaked a lot of people out and had a whole heck of a lot of fun. But another thing that I learned is at that particular meeting was that you had recently published a book called The RevOps Advantage.
Thank you. Yes, that's right.
Everybody go out and get this book and read it and support Amy in this effort. But I have one really serious question before we get into specifics of your background and how you got to where you're doing things now. You're a mom of 5 children. You're a CMO. You're a founder. You're an author. You're a podcaster. How in the ever-loving heck do you do it all?
You are so nice to say that. When I was getting my PhD, I was married once before. And so I started getting my doctorate while I was single, and I thought it would be great to raise kids with a flexible schedule. And then I got remarried. And so as I was finishing my degree, we had 2 more little kids. So I had 4 kids. And I would wait until everyone went to bed. And then from like 11 p.m. to 3 a.m., I would work on my dissertation. And there was a really good quote that my good friend Kara sent me. And it was a Longfellow quote. And if I can remember it correctly, it said, "The heights by which great men achieved were not achieved by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night."
My word.
So isn't that a great quote?
Sounds like you embodied that to a T. My goodness.
Well, I realized that if I were going to get everything done that I needed to, I was going to have to make some sacrifices. And so I didn't want it to be my kids. And so I was like, I guess sleep's got to go. So I've been addicted to caffeine ever since.
Hey, caffeine. It makes the world go round.
It does.
So let's dive a little bit into your background. So you've led a lot of companies, everything from like Series A to acquisition. Tell us a little bit how you went from teaching at universities to becoming like a tech executive. I mean, that's an interesting transition. So how did a PhD in communication really lead to a career in revenue operations? What kind of problems were you trying to solve when you headed in that direction? And also more specifically, what type of problems were you trying to solve when you built Fullcast?
Wonderful. Well, I actually have another personal story, if you'll indulge me, because it's why I shifted from academics into tech. I've always loved academics. I've always loved research and writing, and my passion is there. And so I'm in my second marriage. I'm finishing my dissertation. My husband gets a job at Lehman Brothers 1 month before it goes bankrupt.
Dun, dun, dun.
And so I was like, oh, this is so great. I can just stay home with kids and I can raise my kids. And then all of a sudden life happened like it does for so many of us. And luckily Jeff is a good sport. And he came to me one day and was like, hey, Amy, I just got a $10,000 tax return. Let's split it in half and see who can make the most money. And so I thought, well, we got to work it. We've got to work anyway. Kids got to eat. And so I used my $5,000 seed money for stage marketing, and I started going out on my own and saying, all right, well, I know how to write and I know how to research. So can I work for you? And so I just started, trying to get whatever jobs I could. And then eventually people said, well, I see you can write. Can you design? Can you do web? Can you do social? And a lot of those things I couldn't do. So I had to start hiring. And it grew into this beautiful organic business, and it was growing well, and it was so exciting because I was doing it at home. And then I had all these I remember the day I hired my first employee, I was so freaked out. I was like, I'm going to be responsible for somebody else's livelihood. This is so scary. But everything was going well. And then I met, I had a client named Ryan Westwood, and I was helping him write his Forbes articles. And one day he said to me, "Hey, I need a head of marketing. What do you think?" And I said, "Absolutely." It took me 1 second to say, I'm going to put my agency on ice. I'm going all in. There was so much I had to learn, especially like how to do marketing inside of a department, how to work with other departments, why marketing even mattered, a lot of things like that. So I worked with Ryan from 2017 to 2020, and we were acquired by Infosys. And then I worked at Infosys for a few more years. I also did a startup from Series A through acquisition with Dan Lambert at Pathology Watch. That was from 2020 to 2023. And then another one with Ryan Wells at Onboard from 2023 to 2024. And then I sold my business. And then, and Ryan wanted to do something else together, which I was so excited about. And so again, it took me one more hot second to say absolutely. And we started Fullcast. And we started Fullcast with the reason that we saw a lot of go-to-market changing. And what I'm calling it now is the great go-to-market reset. Everything is going wrong right now. 78% of people are not making their quotas. 14% of sellers are doing 80% of the deals. Automation is supposed to help, but it's hurting. We've never been performing worse with more tech. So this is a real challenge that we need to solve. And there are going to be some winners and some losers. And AI has just like bungled the whole thing. And then you've got your macro environments. And so we're in a big, huge pile of chaos right now in go-to-market, and it's never been more exciting.
Well, you bring up something really important, and that is because when people think of AI, all they think about is like chatbots, robots. They think about LLMs, but there's a lot of things that people don't see. Like, for example, Fullcast, you're using AI for everything from territory design to lead routing to forecasting, quota setting, even coaching. You're doing individual coaching that's AI driven. So, I mean, you talk about like people having a hard time selling in today's technology-centered world. But how does all of this assistance that you're giving these salespeople, how does that affect the person on the other end of this, the customer? How does it improve the customer's experience?
Well, I really love this question because I have some hot takes that you may or may not agree with, and I'd love to discuss more.
Let's go.
In my opinion, one of the main reasons that we're having so many problems is because people have become disassociated with each other. So, for example, marketing is very guilty. In marketing, we've been trying for the past 10 years to pretend that we're real people when we're not.
Okay.
The personalization on the emails, the LinkedIn automation, like all of these things that are supposed to help just amplify us, we're actually posing as we have been pretending that automation is people, and everyone knows it. Everyone lies to it. Everyone sees it as a bunch of noise. Everyone's got a great BS detector. Emojis are now the thing of the past because GPT uses them, right?
Yeah. Well, that and M dashes, right? That's how you can tell when it's AI.
That and M dashes.
Which is tough because I still use M dashes on occasion, and I get done writing something and I look at it and I'm like, oh crap, I posted that already and it's got M dashes in it. Crap.
We should be using M dashes. Just
I
saying.
know. Let's revolt back. Let's swing that
We'll
pendulum back the
revolt
other
back.
direction.
But really, like, I think that the inauthenticity is really what has driven a lot of the chaos.
You're not wrong. You're wondering if I'm disagreeing with you. I am absolutely not disagreeing with you. I mean, technology, tale as old as time. People have been using technology as a shield to protect themselves and to shield themselves from the world. Think of the cyberbully phenomenon, right? You're talking about people that they get behind a keyboard and a screen and you don't have an actual picture of them or seeing them face to face, and suddenly they turn into an entirely different animal. And it's a different kind of phenomenon, but you're absolutely right. Here I am priding myself in the fact that I'm making posts on LinkedIn that AI doesn't have anything to do with.
Mm-hmm.
What's up with that? That suddenly I have to differentiate myself from the rest of the world on LinkedIn by actually not using AI to post about AI. That seems kind of idiosyncratic to me.
%. Well, and some people have gone back the whole other way. So Intellix is an advisory and analyst firm. And in their pitch to me, to sell me services, they said, we use zero AI in our research.
Interesting.
My academics, and he's getting a PhD in psychology. There's been a huge blowback on AI research because somebody didn't check their AI and just put in the whole analysis without even double checking it. And it got published in one of the main journals. like crazy stuff. And so I think the AI is so useful and so valuable and it needs to be baked in, but it has to stop short of the actual relationship unless it's transparent. So, for example, AI chatbots, there are going to be tons of people who would rather talk to an AI chatbot than a person. I'm one of those people. I would so much rather talk to an AI chat box and ask them all the questions and not have the sales pressure and just find out my information until I want to talk to a salesperson. So that's why I think that we need to start, and these are starting to be defined, these rules of the game.
Well, that's fair, but there's also a real interesting controversial angle to take on that because if you're okay, let me put it this way. In order to serve someone well, you want to be able to, in a sense, customize things for them
Okay.
a little bit for that particular individual. So if we look at it from the customer's perspective of things, isn't this a little bit of a double-edged sword? I mean, not to wade too heavily into something entirely controversial, but AI needs info. I mean, it's a lot of information, and there's this ever-present war between personalization and privacy. So the interesting thing here is determining where the line lies. I mean, where does personalization cross into like creepy surveillance? For example, how much does Fullcast know about the customers? What types of data are being collected?
Well, the good thing about our chief technology officer, who was the original founder of Fullcast, is that he has a very careful guard when it comes to privacy. He is probably the most careful about privacy of anyone I know. And that really serves the customer well, even though sometimes I get into trouble because I want to push things further than people are comfortable with on the privacy side.
On the edge, there's Amy
Pushing the
pushing the
edge. Yeah.
edge.
But Fullcast will only surface the data of whatever people allow. And I think that that's kind of the message is, right, if you want to have AI ingest everything you have, all of your data, I think that's awesome. And that's really the future of AI, but it has to be on your own terms and it has to be with your permission. And then, like the public cloud has basically been consumed by LLMs, basically, right? And so what's left is the private data that companies will allow. And there's got to be a lot of choice in the matter of what we want to have those LLMs consume and in what form, whether it's a private GPT or public.
Well, that raises the whole social dilemma angle. For those of you that haven't watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix, that is a highly, can I make it 11 stars out of 5
It's very
recommendation to watch it on Netflix? And that leads to the question, are we giving AI the ability to sell better to us or to manipulate us better?
well. I think that we can point to the increase in little girls buying $50 face cream to manipulation. I'm part of it. I take my 13-year-old to Sephora and buy her milk for $50, even though I know she doesn't need the face cream, but that's what she wants. And so I think that when we talk about manipulation versus advertising, there's always been like a very fine line, right, on that.
Yeah.
But I do think that the society has become more polarized because of those algorithms. What's your take on that?
No, I agree. I mean, AI tends to, well, when we say AI here, I'm speaking generally about large language models or other sorts of generative AI to begin with. And that is, it's trying hard to do what it is that you're asking it to do. And sometimes it reads the intent from the prompt itself. Even if you're trying to frame the prompt in such a way that it may disagree with you, the fact that you bring something up means it's going to pay particular attention to that thing that you brought up. And so it's going to be a little bit sycophantic. We're never going to get away with that. I mean, or never get away from that, pardon me. It's always going to be there to a certain level. But I don't think we've reached Minority Report levels, but we're kind of starting to get there. It's getting a little crazy. People also not only are worried about AI from a manipulation perspective, but they're also worried about it from a job market perspective. So let me throw out a couple of little stats here and let's talk about this. 42% of sales reps today are concerned about AI replacing their jobs. AI can currently, it's estimated, automate, based on current research, that it can automate anywhere from 50 to 67% of tasks for entry-level sales roles. And 85 million jobs, according to the World Economic Forum. This is not some little podunk research institution in backwater, whatever. The World Economic Forum says that 85 million jobs could potentially be affected by AI this year, 2025. So let's talk about this as a founder of a company that's building AI tools for sales. How do you, as a corporate executive, respond to concerns that you're automating people out of jobs? I mean, are you automating or are you augmenting? Not to hit you full bore with a real controversial question, but I'm curious about your take on this.
I've been thinking about this an absolute ton. So when it comes to what we do at Fullcast, we build enablement tools. In my opinion, the ones we really have, well, in my opinion, the ones that have been designed to replace people are backfiring. I really believe that. The ones that have been replaced to automate the life out of SDRs. People are getting rid of the SDR job because they're saying it doesn't work because they've automated everything away. The sales outbound will exist forever. They're just putting it into a different job. They're making the executives do it. They're making the outside sales team become a hunter. They're saying the SDRs are gone because they have totally jacked up that digital calling and emailing to the point that they think that there's no value in it. That to me is absolutely nuts. To think that outbound outreach on digital channels is so ineffective that you should just never do it anymore. That's what they're saying when they're saying that outbound is dead.
Well, and that could partially be because now people, like you mentioned, their filter, their ability to discern whether this is a human being versus some sort of an automaton, our spidey sense perks up. And I personally think, and this is a bit of a controversial take, but I think we're going to have the pendulum, before everything settles, swing in the other direction. We have overcorrected in trying to automate and to augment sales work to the point where we're taking away the human element. And so now I'm to the point where, unless it's an actual human being, I'm not paying a whole lot of attention, whether that's on LinkedIn, whether that's on X, Twitter, for crying out loud, whether that's Facebook, any sort of social media, any sort of targeted marketing. To me, even text, you can tell it's not a human
You
being.
can
You can just
totally
tell.
tell. Well, that's the thing that I think that's why I started with authenticity, right? If you want to talk to a chatbot, you should be able to talk to a chatbot. If you want to talk to a human, you should be able to talk to a human and know it's a human. And so in my mind, what we have done is we've tried to automate out these sales jobs. And just like you said, it's backfiring. And we have just basically obliterated an entire job function by trying to AI it too quickly without the rules, without acknowledging the importance of the humanity behind it. To me, that is like such a huge lesson in what we should and shouldn't be doing with AI. And it shows what the market is willing to accept and not accept. They're saying we should get rid of the entire job function of SDRs, which means we should get rid of digital calling, digital emails, digital LinkedIn. We should get rid of all of that? I don't think so. People like to communicate with each other, and I have very good success with emails and with LinkedIn. Me, because first of all, the title helps. And second of all, I do it personally and they know it's a personal outreach. So to me, the automation is killing. Like, I think the pendulum has swung way too far, just like you said. And I do not in the long run expect any salespeople's jobs to really be in danger from that. What I expect is for a lot of AI companies to go out of business because people are going to get wise to it.
Well, possibly. Not to play devil's advocate or anything, but you don't see very many, self-checkout lines going away in grocery stores. Even though you, me, and everybody, unless the person's absolutely crazy and wants to strike up a conversation that's completely inappropriate, we do like talking to someone in the checkout line. We do like having some young, interesting, or even older, interesting person bagging our groceries for us, as long as they put the bread on top and not on the bottom. It's one of those things where companies still are subject to the almighty dollar, and they are trying to save money wherever they can, and they're trying to generate more revenue anywhere they can. And if the amount of money spent on AI-driven sales development tools provides a better return than what they're paying for a human being as a percentage of return, they're still probably going to fall in that direction, even though that may not necessarily be what the customer ultimately wants.
Yeah, I think that's true. But in my mind, when you're building things to enable sales teams rather than replace them, that's when you're going to be the most successful. So for us, for example, the AI tools that we've chosen to focus on are number one, like balancing of equitable territories for the sales team. Number 2, accurate forecasting, and we have a guarantee on that forecast. Number 3, AI sales coaching. So you can like surface all of what you're doing as a salesperson, and the AI will tell you like areas that you've won and not won. And so those things are things that are designed, at least our sensibilities at Fullcast are designed to serve the sales team, not replace them. However, if we can get the sales team to be as so effective, that will mean that people will have to hire fewer salespeople to get the same results. What I expect, though, is because 78% of people are missing their quotas, if we can just get them to ground zero where everybody's getting their quotas, we're going to have very happy sales teams and very happy companies.
Well, now you're talking about a situation where if you make salespeople more effective, is it ever a bad idea not to hire more salespeople when their effectiveness has gone up? Because then you can conquer the world because your
Absolutely
people
right.
are so effective. So now here's a different take on this. What kinds of jobs is Fullcast creating? Is it just simply more salespeople because their effectiveness is increased, or is there some other sort of a related type of position that is going to be created by companies starting to use software like Fullcast?
Well, I really love that question because I also have a hot take that if companies are not putting a strategic head of revenue operations in the executive team reporting to the CEO, they're really missing out. Companies that have a dedicated revenue operations function, generally speaking, are making about 30% more. That is a huge number. And so when you have that strategic mind that is focused on, like marketing ops, sales ops, customer success ops, data ops, and sales enablement, and they have the purview over that reporting to the CEO, that is going to give you the biggest lift. And if you have tools that are enabling that person, the reason that a lot of people don't even have RevOps departments yet is because it is a cost center at first before it enables everyone else. Then you're going to be a lot further ahead and companies are going to be able to afford that RevOps function more quickly and enable them more easily. I think what we're doing is trying to enable that revenue operations function, help them grow and develop. And then truly, when it comes to our overall vision, we see go-to-market as a combination between marketing, sales, and customer success, with each of them being the 3 legs of the stool and equally as important.
Very much so. And in smaller companies, you often have that all like consolidated under the leadership of one particular individual. So you're right. It's a natural growth mechanism when things get big enough to be able to split this apart and specialize a little bit more. It's funny because revenue ops is an initial investment. It's hard sometimes to really determine what the initial ROI is until you've actually got it in place and it can start actually showing and bearing some fruit. Interesting how building AI infrastructure and different things like that is kind of the same way. Everybody's freaking out right now about AI. Oh, I don't know if the ROI is there, when they're doing all the foundational efforts to build their first initial use cases and their first little functional elements of AI in their company. They may not turn a perfect profit on it right now, but the training, so to speak, as an athlete that they did in this initial training run is going to make them better at the next event, or make them able to do the next things better. So there's a real parallel there, which is quite kind of interesting and a little serendipitous, given that AI being used in revenue operations is certainly making revenue operations even better.
That's right. And, even in marketing teams, for example, before the term revenue operations was even coined in 2016, I was doing RevOps as the head of a marketing agency because people didn't know what to call it. So they threw it into marketing and they said, "Hey, Amy, I need you I need to hire you and your marketing team in order to build my list, do my targets, build my sales enablement assets, make sure my data's clean." Well, we call that revenue operations today. So really, the jobs have always been there. It's just a matter of what we're calling them, how we do them, and how we orchestrate them in a way that's going to be the most efficient.
So what should people in sales being in sales right now? What should people in sales be doing right now to stay relevant in this new AI powered world?
Well, I will tell you, one of the most impactful things at the panel that I ran last month when you were on it, was your 5 C's. The 5 C's of being able to differentiate from AI and to stay relevant in today's job market are the same for all of the salespeople. And it's really all about relationships. Can you tell me what your 5 C's are?
Sure, you bet. I'm happy to step forward and talk about this concept that I came up with about these 5 skills that are so crucial in a new post AI world. Okay, number one being communication, obviously, which is very central to sales. Number two is collaboration. Just because you can talk to someone doesn't necessarily mean that you can work well with them. So let's make sure that we can work well with others. But then number three is curiosity. Got to be curious. Number four is creativity, because we can think outside of the box better than any other organisms that have ever walked the face of the earth, including silicon-based life forms like AI. And number five is probably the most critical of all, and that is, speaking critically, critical thinking.
That's right. Absolutely. Like you say, to me, those are the 5 that are so important for any sales team right now and that's why all of these AI SDRs are failing
Yeah.
because they don't have those and they're not connecting with people, yet they're trying to connect with people. So I see a world where the AI tools that are front facing are going to be very distinct. They're going to be self-service motions. They're going to be transparently AI. And the people on the sales teams that master those 5 C's are going to thrive more than ever before because they're going to use AI as a tool to help them do all the other stuff so they can focus on those 5 things.
It's interesting because I get excited thinking about a world where, I feel like a radio announcer, but in a world where a salesperson's only thing that they need to do, the only thing that they need to do, because AI has fully surrounded them and is able to pull off the rest of the job functions based on what the AI observes the salesperson doing, is simply having an effective conversation with someone. So if AI is monitoring that conversation, AI can glean the strategy necessary or the order. I mean, let's extract what kind of order it is that the person wants. Any parameters around that order, the AI can provide the salesperson with facts and figures as needed on demand during the conversation, so that a salesperson, they walk up, they hit a button, AI lines up a conversation that they're going to have with someone. It cues up the conversation. They have that conversation with someone, convincing them in a very human way why the product that they're trying to sell or the things that they're trying to do for this individual will benefit them. And then once that conversation results in a potential successful sale, they say, all right, awesome. I'll follow up with you in 2 or 3 days. Thanks. Have a good one. And then they move on to the next conversation. And everything outside of the conversation is being done, managed, executed by AI. The salesperson, all they got to do is do what they do best, which is communicate, collaborate, and make sure that you're serving the needs of the other person.
I so love the way that you're characterizing that because a couple of things. Number one, salespeople are only actually selling about 2 hours a day. Imagine what you could do if you were actually selling 8 hours a day, right? Number two, how fun would it be to be a salesperson and you just go to parties and go talk to people? Like, that's amazing. I did my own sales for 15 years when I was running my business. And those are my favorite conversations, was when you could get in there and critically think and help a client fix a problem. Like, that's so exciting. And to be able to do more of that, I think is just really, really awesome. And then number three, with AI doing the rest, I could totally see having a relationship with an AI as like an assistant, right? And making it visible to the client. And I think that this part of it is important, that you say, hey, here's my AI Amy. I'm Amy. Here's AI Amy. And AI Amy's going to follow up with you on some of the things that we talk about. But you're going to know if it's a human or an AI. And you're going to know. So I think that, to me, to add to your 5 C's, I would add 1 A, and that would be authenticity. And I think
There you
those
go.
are very good guidelines for how to sell with AI in today's marketplace.
I would concur. Amy, do you know that we have already gone like almost 30 minutes? Isn't that
Wait,
crazy?
what?
Yeah,
Oh my
we have.
gosh.
So this is the tough part about when you're like talking to someone you genuinely enjoy just hanging out with and talking with, that the time flies and suddenly we have to kind of start wrapping things up. And so I hate to do this, but I do got to wrap this up a little bit. There is one thing that I do want to get from you, though, before we put a pin on this one until the next time that we talk, which hopefully is going to be very, very soon. If you could give one bit of advice for those people that are new and haven't explored AI too much, whether they are like individual, just general public coming off the street, or whether they are a, executive or something, if AI is relatively new to them, what piece of advice would you give to those people that are looking to learn and adopt AI? Go.
Get familiar with your favorite LLM. If it's ChatGPT, if it's Gemini, just start exploring what it can do. I've been trying to push the limits on what I can do. I have both Gemini Ultra and ChatGPT Pro, and I'm exploring it and I'm really enjoying, I prefer the writing of ChatGPT and I prefer the videos of Gemini. Grok is a little bit too posy for me. They try to pretend they're humans and I don't like that. And so but other people love it. My husband loves using Grok. So I think you should just try to get familiar with those LLMs, see how you interact with them, see what's possible, and you'll find yourself getting really interested and kind of sucked in.
Yeah, Claude is really interesting too, because this latest release of Claude, the release of Claude Sonnet 4.5, which I have found to be rather interesting as well. I don't know if you've had a chance to play with
I
that one
haven't
at all.
yet. No, I need to educate myself on this.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. Oh, there's so much coming, and it's so fun, and it's so interesting and crazy. Amy, thank you so much for taking the time to talking to me today. You are the bestest ever.
I absolutely love this conversation, and I think you are the best. Hearts and flowers.
There we go. Lots of hearts. All right, Amy, you rock. Thank you so much.
You rock too. Thank you so much.
And there you have it, a fun and fast dive into authenticity, AI, and the future of go-to-market with Amy Osmond Cook. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more interesting conversations about all things AI.